7 years ago, when I opened my restaurant, What's Cooking, in Newport Beach, California, pasta was a foreign word to most of our customers. They were mainly familiar with the plebeian spaghetti. I was often asked, what do you mean by pasta? 3 or 4 years later, pasta became the in-food. James Beard, food authority, said, pasta is the reigning food of the day. One day, while watching my mother making pasta by hand with all the neighborhood children around her, my mind meandered to melancholy thoughts of watching a skill that will soon become a lost art. I wanted to preserve these memories. I wanted to share them with future generations. This led to the idea of filming Mother making pasta by hand. Being that pasta making is a family tradition, I thought it might be of interest to others to view pasta being made in our family through 3 generations, covering a period of approximately 100 years. We'll begin with Mother making pasta by hand. I will then follow with a demonstration of pasta making with a little manual machine, and that will be followed with my children making pasta with one of the many electrical machines available today. My mother, Maria Conchetta, is responsible for my initial interest in cooking. She taught me when I was 12 years old to make pasta by hand. Although I've been making pasta for many years, I can't begin to match her dexterity and swiftness. Let's go into the kitchen and meet my mother and watch her make pasta by hand. Buongiorno, Mommy.
Buongiorno, Gia.
What are you doing?
Oh, I'm making noodle here.
Pasta making involves approximately 4 steps. Step 1 would be the mixing of the flour with the eggs. Step 2 would be the kneading of the dough, which takes approximately 8 or 10 minutes by hand. Step 3 would be flattening and stretching the dough as thin as possible. And step 4 would be cutting the dough in whatever shape you wish. Mother will begin the pasta by putting flour on the board and making kind of a well with the flour. In the middle, she will crack eggs. There's 1 egg. The recipe is 1 egg for 1 cup of flour. Although she never measures, she has an idea how much flour she needs. She is making 4 eggs of pasta, which would mean she would need approximately 4 cups of flour. Now she mixes the eggs with her hands, so gradually beating the eggs, mixing the eggs in with the flour. She does kind of a circular motion around the well, gradually bringing the flour in with the egg. She always has a little extra flour ready if she needs it, and a little water ready in the event that the dough becomes too moist. It's difficult to have exact measurement because flours differ, size of eggs differ, and that will determine how much water you put in. Here she's mixing again the flour, trying to make all the flour moistened with the egg. She will knead this dough for approximately 8 or 10 minutes. This is probably the reason why Marcel Hazen and my mother feel that pasta making by hand produces a better product, because they claim the warmth of the hand creates a better elasticity in the dough, therefore producing a better product in texture and taste. Notice Mom's movement and the way she kneads the dough.
I put a little flour and I kneaded the dough with the base of my hands until the dough is smooth and not sticky.
Now that Mom has made the dough, it must rest for about 15 minutes. Not to waste time, she made some dough earlier that has been resting for 15 minutes, which we will use now to demonstrate Mom stretching and flattening the dough as thin as possible. The texture has more elasticity now that it's been resting. What they usually do is stretch the dough the size of the rolling pin. This rolling pin, one can easily stretch 4 eggs of pasta. So if you have to make a larger quantity, then you have to make it in 2 or 3 batches. She rolls it out and transfers her weight from the middle to the side of the dough to flatten it equally. Turns it around so that she will continue making a kind of an even circle. And the circle will be approximately 18 or 24-inch circle when she's done. If that's the thinnest you want, then you're ready to cut. Sprinkles a little flour so that it won't stick. And then she starts rolling it up. And roll both sides to the middle. She can cut it any size she wants. This is the size of a fettuccine. As you see, you can make pasta in any shape or size you wish, from an 1/8 of an inch linguine strip to a 1/4 of an inch fettuccine, even a 2-inch in width lasagna strip. Voila, Mama's homemade pasta. Let me show you how my generation made pasta. I felt very fortunate the day I received this little manual pasta making machine. This is a machine that can make linguine, fettuccine, or lasagna strips. It consists of 3 parts. You can see here the linguine cutter. Beneath it is the fettuccine cutter. And beneath that are the 2 rolling pins that control the thickness of the dough. It has a clamp that will clamp it onto a table or board as we have here, and the handle is detachable depending on which of the 3 areas you're using. If you put it in the first slot, you'll knead and thin out the dough. If you put it in the second slot, you'll make fettuccine, or the third slot, you'll make linguine. There is a dial here for thinning out the dough. It has numbers from 1 to 10, depending on the thickness you wish. Normally, we make it as thin as possible. Okay, to make the dough, we begin just as my mom made the dough. We start off with flour. The measurement is approximately 1 cup of flour per egg. Let's make 2 eggs worth, so I'll put approximately 2 cups of flour. I make a well in the middle and crack 2 eggs because there are 2 cups of flour. I mix the eggs and gradually, in a circular motion, bring the flour into the eggs. All the flour has to be moist. Little by little. If you need a little more moisture, if you think there's too much flour, you always have water handy to mix it in. If the dough is too moist, you have flour ready to mix more in, if the need should be. When all the flour is mixed in, you begin your kneading process, which again, just as my mother showed, may take approximately, anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. I might use a little bit of water. It's a little bit on the dry side. You don't really measure water. I can't give you a measurement for it because it depends on the size of the egg and the type of flour you're using. But after making pasta for a while, you'll get to learn the feel of it. And as my mother said, it should be smooth and not sticky. If you notice, the dough is a little bit dry, so we should put a few drops of water in. And work that water in, kneading in the same motion with the back of your hand. Then you scrape off all the particles of flour. And work it all in the dough. As you see, I'm kneading the dough a little bit more, making it into a little ball before I put it to rest for about 15 or 20 minutes. Now, when you rest the dough, it should be covered. You could put it with a saran wrap or in a little dish as we did here with dough that we made earlier. Put it in the bowl and cover it with a cloth, and we can use that later. For demonstrating purposes, we did some dough in advance, and we'll use this dough with our little machine. And since the dough can dry out, we'll work with it in portions. I'll cut it, let's say, in half, and then in quarters. We'll just work with one piece at a time and put the other away. Cover it so that it doesn't dry out, and work with this dough. You don't really need a rolling pin. If you can flatten a little bit with your hand and then begin to use it put it through the machine. I have the machine set at the widest opening so that we could start working the dough through it. Of course, we need the handle. And there we have it. Now we want to make this thinner because we're going to make noodles with it. I'll move the dial a couple of numbers smaller and thin it out again. I'm going to make the dough even thinner. Therefore, we must move the dial a few notches to the left. The dough is getting thinner, but also getting longer. It might be very difficult to work if it's too long, so we might consider cutting it. Now you have 2 strips, but we're going to thin it out even more so. Therefore, we move the notch again to the left. You can make the dough as thin as you wish. I prefer as thin as possible. Therefore, I turn the dial to the very last notch on the left-hand side. If you wish a wider strip of dough, such as this, then when you are thinning out the dough, you put it into a wider piece so that when you are putting it through the machine, you will end up with a wider product. And you continue with the process as we have done before for the lasagna strip. With these wider strips, there are many things you can do. You can cut it and have little squares for making cannelloni, which you will later roll and stuff. Or you can use it to make raviolis, or cut to make interesting shapes which you can deep fry and make cookies out of. If you want to make linguine or fettuccine, you'll have to remove the handle from the rollers and put it in the slot, for example, for linguine, and then put the dough through. And we have our linguine. Very delicate, thin strands of noodle. For fettuccine now, we'll have to take the handle out of the linguine slot, and put it in the fettuccine slot, and put our dough through the machine again. And there we have homemade fettuccine. You can see the difference. This being very thin and delicate, and this being a little bit wider. Now I would like to introduce you to my children, who will demonstrate how the younger generation makes pasta with an electric machine. Come and join us and tell us what you will do. Jason, what will you make?
Spaghetti.
George, what will you make?
Rigatoni.
And Michelle, what will you make?
Pasta cookies.
This is the electric machine that the children will be using today to demonstrate the making of pasta. This machine comes with different discs to make different kinds of shapes and styles of pasta. Jason today will demonstrate the making of spaghetti. Jason?
To make a serving of spaghetti for 2 or 3 people, you need 2 cups of flour, 2 eggs. You put the flour inside the machine. And then so you put the lid on, turn the machine on, and add the eggs in gradually. Okay, you let this mix to 4 to 5 minutes, and you check the moistness to see if it's too dry or too wet. If it's too moist, then you add some flour. If it's too dry, you add some water. You add the water a tablespoon at a time. Now I'm going to take the top off to see if the dough needs any water or more flour. It seems like the dough needs some more water.
It's about 1.5 tablespoons.
Yeah. And then leave it running for about another minute. Now I'm going to take the top off again to check the dough, see if it's right. It's perfect. spaghetti first comes out, you should cut it off because the texture isn't very good.
Jason has demonstrated the basic egg pasta. George will follow by making rigatoni, but having some fun with colored pasta by using pureed vegetables. We have on the table carrot, beets, and peas, which have been pureed.
Making pasta can be fun. Jason has already showed you how to make spaghetti. I'm going to be different and show you how to make rigatoni. In order to do so, I must put the rigatoni disc on. You should make it as tight as possible. I've added some carrot puree to make the rigatoni more colorful, but you can be creative and add any vegetable you like to make any color you want. As Jason already demonstrated, you should cut off the first batch because the texture is too rough. After you cut the first batch, you can cut it to any length desired.
As George said, pasta making can be fun, and as you can see, we've been very creative by adding cocoa, spinach, blueberries, carrots, and eggs, and making this rainbow of colors. Now that you've seen a making of various types of pasta, using the same dough, I'm going to demonstrate a pasta dessert. To do so, you need a very thin strip of pasta. Therefore, I'm going to use this lasagna disc in making it. Screw on the disc, as George and Jason did before, making sure it's put on as tight as possible. At this point, the pasta is ready to cut. Lay out your strips. I'm going to turn off the machine, and with the dough already laid out, I'll show how cookies can be made. Once you lay out the dough, you slice it at a vertical angle. And then at this point, you just put little slashes in it, or once again, slicing it, you can make little bows out of the dough, or various designs to your desire, such as these. Now, after making these cookies, I'm going to deep fry them. Before I begin frying the cookies, I'm going to take one of them to see if the oil is hot enough. Simply place it in the oil. If it sizzles and puffs up as it did, then the oil is ready. At this point, take your remaining cookies, placing them on your spatula, preventing yourself from being burned by the oil. You place it into the hot oil, moving it around, prevent the cookies from burning. Once they reach a golden color, they're ready to be removed. After frying the cookies for several seconds, to add a little sweetness, you simply sprinkle some confectioner's sugar on the top of the cookies. Here's an example of some cookies I made earlier. I hope you have as much fun experimenting with pasta as I have.
I would like to show you some basic steps in cooking pasta. Step number 1 is to have a pan of rapidly boiling water before you put the pasta in. Some people add salt or oil to the water. I don't find it necessary to do so. You must have at least 1 quart of water for 1 pound of pasta. Step number 2 is to have your sauce ready. Here I have a bolognese meat sauce, which I prepared in advance. You have your bowl ready, your sauce ready, and your colander ready to strain the pasta. Now we're ready to cook the pasta. We'll take the pasta and put it in gradually into this pan of rapidly boiling water. This is our fresh pasta which we made earlier. I have a combination here of the egg pasta and the spinach pasta. Now when the pasta goes into the pan, naturally it will cool off the water and the water stops to boil. Well, this fresh pasta will take less than a minute to cook. As soon as the water boils again and the pasta will come to the top of the water, it's ready to remove from the heat, strain, and put into the sauce. You can see the water is coming to a boil again. Therefore, the pasta is just about ready. It's coming to the top of the water. We'll strain the pasta. And here we'll put it into the sauce. There's a little bit of sauce at the bottom of the bowl so that it won't stick. Here we'll put some sauce on top. As I said, there's a little sauce on the bottom so that it doesn't stick to the bowl. We stir it up. This is family style in the big pasta bowl. And we're ready for dinner. Maybe a little fresh grated Parmesan. It's time to eat some of our delicious pasta. But before doing so, a discussion on pastas, sauces, and Italian cuisine would not be complete without a discussion of some of the wines to accompany our dishes. For that, I shall turn to the wine authority of our house, my husband, Jorge Luhan.
To talk about the wines of Italy is to talk about a very intriguing puzzle. Because of the geographical location, Italy can offer all kinds of wine for all palates. For that reason, I think that you should perhaps pick the wine that is more palatable to you to accompany whichever dish you choose to eat. For example, if we look into the geographical location of Italy, starting from the north, the Piemonte has offered to us fantastic wines. Perhaps the Barolo and the Barbarescos are the most common known. They are rather fully bodied red wines who can go very nicely with a very also strong bodied meals of that area. If we move into the more northern part of the Lombardia, we have there an area which was previously under the control of the Swiss, the wines of the Valtellina, one of which is a very delicate white straw-like color wine, which can accompany some of the very creamy dishes which come out of this northern part of Italy. If we move into the Veneto, we have the famous Soave, whether it would be red or white. And as we move down into the Toscana area near Firenze, we come to the perhaps the most better known wine of Italy, which is the Chianti. Because of the name and because of the dispute that has came out of where Chianti should be grown, it has been made an area around the city of Firenze where Chianti can really be grown, and only those grapes will be utilized to be used and to be bottled into the commonly known bottle and shipped throughout the world. The rest of Italy, from the Toscana area down into Sicily, is suddenly as a paradise for the wine drinker. Maybe not, I would say, a superb wine, but certainly the most delectable, palatable, and enjoyable wines that man could consume. It will go with any food that you decide to eat, from fish to vegetables to meats, and it certainly, I will strongly recommend, as I said before, for you to pick the wine that you feel pleases your taste buds the best.
Jorge, what is your selection of wine for this evening's meal?
Will depend upon what kind of a sauce we're going to have with our pasta.
Well, I made us a delicious meat sauce.
That means a bolognese? Okay, then I think that perhaps with this I will recommend a nice full body red wine from the Tuscany, which I think will be just ideal for it. How about if we just bring it over and we enjoy it together? Here we are, sitting there. Okay, drama, that's super.
Pasta has been a staple food for thousands of years. I can't imagine anything taking its place. It can be served in so many ways and forms with endless sauces. As a matter of fact, the more you cook it, the more creative you become. Buon appetito.
Buon appetito!